Hey everyone, it's Brano, and I'm here to finally answer the question, was my first commercial game Healed to Death a success or not? So first of all, if you don't know what Healed to Death is, it is a healing game where you play as the healer, kind of like an MMORPG, but it's in a single player roguelike. So it's merging healing that you would do in MMORPGs into a single player roguelike, and as far as I'm concerned, it is the first and only 3D single player rogue, like the first single player healer game that in 3D. So it's currently got 20% off, but this is not why you're here for the video. You're here for the money. And so let's use a slightly different tool here. I have made $52,061. Now, I released my game on the 8th of April, so it's been 7.5 weeks now. And so this is after 7.5 weeks. And my total sales are 3,942. This is how I get this. So this is the total number of sales, and this is the total number of refunds. So this is how much I've actually properly sold that I would count. This gives me a refund rate of 15.6%, which is pretty average for Steam, which is fine. I accept it. Now, the development time of this project was 20 months, but that also, I'm not including the 3.5 years of doing game dev purely as a hobby, not expecting to make a single cent from it, and building my skills up. So that's sort of the total development time, but we're just going to be focusing on this one. Now, the total revenue net was $52,061, but after Steam takes their cut, that's $36,442. Now, I've also teamed up with an artist, and our agreement was that she gets 36% of this amount of the cut after the development fees were refunded to me. The development fees were like $700, so I'm not going to even include it in this graph. So that means I get 44.8% of this total amount before income tax. Yay! Now, whether or not this is a financial success or not, the first thing we got to do is convert it to Australian dollars, and unfortunately, I've got a really bad exchange rate and I need to fix. This is not a fair exchange rate. This should be $64. I mean, 64 cents for the exchange rate, and this should be like 36,000. So I need to look at how to get a fair exchange rate when getting my money, because this is bullshit. I'm going to look into getting, using my Wise account and then transferring it to a place that I know gives fair conversion rates, because this is bullshit. This should be 64. Anyway, in order to reach what I would consider a borderline financial success, I need to make back my cost of living. And I am a minimalist. I am the cheapest person I know by far. And I can spend, including income tax, I need $33,000 a year in order to survive. Now, the development was 20 months, so we multiply this by 1.67, and I need $55,000 Australian in order to consider this a borderline financial success. And in 7.5 weeks, I'm 63% of the way there. Now, for this to be considered a minor financial success, which I would call minimum wage. Now, keep in mind, I know I use the word minor. This is huge. This means I'm in the top 0.5% of people who make games on Steam. It's a steep curve, but we gotta hold ourselves to high standards if we want to actually do this as a full-time job. Now, in terms of Australian minimum wage, it is less than this, but I'm including superannuation, which is our retirement account. It's like a forced retirement account in Australia. where you get paid and then you get 11.5% on top of it. So that ends up being 53,000 per year. Multiply that by 1.67. And in order for this to be a minor financial success, this needs to generate $88,500 Australian. And I'm 39% of the way there. Now, this is how the sales have gone. In the first week, I've gotten more than half of my sales, but you can still see that it's trickling in, but it is slowing down. So you can see a massive drop. It's like 25%, and then there's a third, and then a small drop, and then a somewhat medium drop, and then another big drop. Now, week 7, this has gone up because I've started a sale, and on the final day of week 7, there was like 101 sales on top of it, but I think that a bunch of them got refunded as well. So it was looking like week 7 was going to be pretty similar to week 6. So it looked like the sales had stabilized. And of course, I'm not full to week 8, so I'm just doing 7.5. And you can see during the sale, I've got 151 sales in for 20% off in the first 3.5 days. So that's kind of, I guess, a comparison of just what sales do. It's a decent bump, but it's not going to bring you to the first 2 weeks or even remotely close to it unless you get a viral video out of it. Now, there have been people who have done some small amount of research on how can you predict the tail sales in game software. And there were 2 that I found. There was one made by the Gray Alien Software guy. That's a guy who did at the GDC, the how to make a living off video games without producing a hit. But his was like 2017, 2018, where this one's in 2021. Now, keep in mind, this is 2021. The video game market is changing all the time. It's a rapidly changing industry. And this is what they found. So they were measuring, can week 1 sales predict how much you are going to sell long term? So what they found is that week 1 to month 1, the median was 1.5, but the range was, when they excluded the outliers, because there were outliers, 1.2 to 1.9. Now, if we do week 1 to year 1, that goes to 3 times with a range of 2 to 4.5. And in year 2, that goes from a median of 4.2x with a range of 2.8 to 7.5. So there's a bit of range. Now, if I just do week 1 sales to week 4 sales, I know it's not a full month, but we're just being lazy here. I get a ratio of 1.43 or 95% of the median. And if I assume that's going to be consistent, once again, we're just being lazy with our math, I can predict that I'm going to get 6,823 sales in the first year, or in the second year, 9,576 sales. Now, if we're really lazy and we pretend that the amount I'm going to get per copy sold remains the same, keep in mind there's currency, there's sales, there's simply, just the simple fact that the Australian dollar could become strong. If the Australian dollar becomes strong, I earn a lot less money, but we're just going to say, all right, things are easy, keep it simple. Now, in the first week, I sold 2,394 copies, and using this, we could assume that made $21,091. In the 4th week, that made $30,000 with 3,436. Now, we're in our prediction zone. So we can predict that in the first year, I will make $60,000. And in the second year, I will make $84,000. So this, if this is anything to go by, it looks like I will, with enough time, definitely, or very, very likely, reach the point where this project justifies itself by reaching minimum wage. So I am going to call Heal to Death a minor financial success. And keep in mind, minor means that you are in the top 0.5% of people who sell their game on Steam. That is amazing. That is incredible. But yeah. And keep in mind, it's going to still be selling in the 3rd year, it's going to still be selling in the 4th year, it's going to still be selling in the 5th year, and after the 6th year, it's probably going to be like barely selling at all, but that's just kind of the way games work. But with that said, the games aren't really aging. This could be still selling a decade from now, so who knows, maybe it could even become a moderate financial success given enough time. But I think I can confidently call this a minor financial success. I'm less confident of calling it a moderate financial success, which would be like average wage for time spent. Anyway, that's it for me, and see you later.